Hello everyone, my name is Gamer Ubusa and I'm going to share to you the stories of the read aloud activities that I have experienced last year. Oh, yes, it's last year because I joined a webinar. It's like the webinar is somewhat like a demo teaching. So this is one I'm going to share to you because I can't recall if my teacher have read aloud activity when I was in my elementary days or my high school days. No, I can't even remember. So luckily I joined this, and then I remember that I have this kind of webinar that I joined. So I have the materials, the PowerPoint, and the lesson plan of the speaker because I was one of the Zoom participant. So one of some of the people watching YouTube live or in the Facebook and and the materials was only given to Zoom participants. It was given by the speaker. So we by Bro Rederick Montreal Aguirre. So the webinar is all about teaching listening comprehension for literacy development English grade 1. So we became one of the grade 1 pupils of teacher Roderick Aguirre. So the story, what I like about the story is that it is simple. It has a simple story. So it's easily to go through, to follow through. And then the second one is that the teacher is guiding the students. Is guiding the student while listening, while he reads, and the children are listening. He guided with questions to sure if the students are really listening. in between the in between the stories, so I'm one of those who I guess I fortunately, because I didn't expect that I'm one of the participant he will call, and then I honestly can't answer it because while I was listening to the story, I was doing something. I was doing, I think, my assignment for 5:30 class, and the webinar starts at 2:30 until 4 p.m. And then the good thing about this that he guided me to recall the story. So what the story? I okay. So that's it. So that's the story. So, and then the third is that the story involves not only listening but also vocabulary, language. He added the meaning of that. So what is the Tagalog of cow? Baka. And then the sound. What is the sound of cow? Moo. What is the sound of bees? What is the Tagalog of beehive? What is the Tagalog of this? So that's one of the reason why I like this story and why I'm going to share to you. And the things that I have learned is how the approaches and the techniques he used while he demonstrate the teaching this story. So the story, so I'm going to read the story about Bobby and his friends go on a community tour, and then there are questions there. So I will show you the questions. Between the stories, there are I think 3 questions. There are couple questions, group of questions. I think 3 group questions. What? Okay. So now I'm going to share to you the stories of Bobby and his friends go on a community tour, written by Bro Roderick Montreal Aguirre. So Bobby and his 2 friends, Danny and Abby, are going on a tour. They are going on a tour around the community. They are going to find the gardens with the best flowers. And Mr. Worker Bee will give them the whole tour. Bobby and his friends live in a beehive with the other bees. Their beehive is always buzzing. Buzz, buzz, buzz. So, you all be careful, young bumblebees. Mr. Worker Bee, please take care of them. Don't forget to have a good time, okay? The queen bee told them. We will. Don't worry, I will take care of them, Mr. Worker Bee assured Mother Bee. Don't worry, Mother. We will all be careful, Bobby reassured his mother. We will definitely be careful, said Abby. We will follow Bobby every step of the way, Danny added. Very good, children. Have you packed your nectar properly? You wouldn't want to get hungry and thirsty along the way, would you? Mr. Worker Bee asked the young bumblebees. We are all packed and ready to go, the 3 excitedly answered. Excuse me, Mr. Worker Bee, but where is our first stop? Bobby asked. Our first stop is in the suntan garden by the farm, Mr. Worker Bee answered. Oh, I love suntan flowers, Abby happily said. And they come in different colors. There are red, yellow, pink, and orange suntan, Danny added. That's perfect then. On we go to the farm then, Mr. Worker Bee said to the 3 with a huge smile on his bee face. The first stop, the group flew past the tall grasses. They passed the small pond and into the farm. Moo, morning, Mr. Worker Bee. Who are these 3 young bees with you? Asked the big cow who was guarding the suntan garden in the farm. Buzz, good morning too, Mr. Cow. These are my 3 trainees. This is Bobby, Abby, and Danny. Mr. Worker Bee introduced the 3 bumblebees. Buzz, good morning, Mr. Cow. We are pleased to meet you, the 3 chorused. Pleased to meet you, little bumblebees. Do you already know the password to enter the jungle geranium garden? Asked Mr. Cow while smiling down at the bumblebees. Oh, about that, little bumblebees, listen to the password carefully so that Mr. Cow will allow you to enter the jungle geranium garden and gather nectar for our hive. Are you ready? Mr. Worker Bee eagerly asked the bees. We are ready, Mr. Worker Bee, chorused the 3 little bumblebees. Buzz, 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 moo, moo. Morning, Mr. Cow. May we enter the jungle geranium garden, please? Buzzed Mr. Worker Bee. Did you get that, little bumblebees? Asked Mr. Worker Bee. We sure did, Mr. Worker Bee, the 3 little bumblebees chorused. Alright then, your turn. Say the password to Mr. Cow. Mr. Worker Bee encouraged the 3. Buzz, buzz, boo, boo. Mr. Worker Bee, may we enter the jungle geranium garden, please? Buzzed the 3 little bumblebees. Moo, moo, morning too. You may enter bumblebees, Mr. Cow answered. The 3 little bumblebees were so happy and entered the suntan or jungle geranium garden. Mr. Worker Bee allowed the three little ones to fly from one jungle geranium flower to another. The group had such a good time in the Santan or jungle geranium garden. Come on, little bumblebees, it's time to move on to our next garden destination. Mr. Worker Bee called out the tree. We are coming! Come on, guys, let's go, Bobby said to Abby and Danny. We are all ready to go, Mr. Worker Bee, the tree chorused. The group waved from Mr. Cow a cheery goodbye and flew away from the farm. Excuse me, Mr. Worker Bee, but where is our next garden destination? Danny asked. Our next and final garden destination is the Sunflower Garden by the sea, Mr. Worker Bee answered. Oh, I love sunflower. That's where Mother and I had our picnic, Bobby happily said. And they come in different sizes. There are small and big sunflowers, Danny added. That's perfect then. On we go to the park then, Mr. Worker Bee said to the tree with a huge smile in his bee face. When the group arrived at the sunflower garden in the park by the sea, a bird was there guarding the entrance to the garden. Chirp, chirp. Morning, Mr. Worker Bee. Who are these three young bees with you? Asked Mr. Bird, who was guarding the sunflower garden in the park by the sea. Buzz, good morning too, Mr. Bird. These are my three trainees. This is Bobby, Abby, and Danny. Mr. Worker Bee introduced the three bumblebees. Buzz, good morning, Mrs. Bird. We are pleased to meet you, the tree chorused. Pleased to meet you, little bumblebees. Do you already know the password to enter the sunflower garden? Asked Mrs. Bird while smiling down at the bumblebees. Oh, about that. Little bumblebees, listen to the password carefully so that Mrs. Bird will allow you to enter this beautiful sunflower garden and gather nectar for our hive. Are you ready? Mr. Worker Bee eagerly asked the bees. We are ready, Mr. Worker Bee, chorused the three little bumblebees. Buzz, buzz, chirp, chirp. Morning, Mrs. Bird. May we enter the sunflower garden, please? Buzzed Mr. Worker Bee. Did you get that, little bumblebees? Asked Mr. Worker Bee. We sure did, Mr. Worker Bee, the three little bumblebees chorused. All right then, your turn. Say the password to Mrs. Bird. Mr. Worker Bee encouraged the tree. Buzz, buzz, chirp, chirp. Morning, Mrs. Bird. May we enter the sunflower garden, please? Buzzed the three little bees. Chirp, chirp. Morning, too. You may enter, bumblebees, Mrs. Bird answered. The three little bumblebees were so happy and entered the sunflower garden. Mr. Worker Bee allowed the three little ones to fly from one sunflower to another. The group had such a good time in the sunflower garden. Come on, little bumblebees, it is time to go home. Did you all have a good time? Mr. Worker Bee asked the tree. We sure did, Mr. Worker Bee, the three bumblebees answered. Great! Are you all packed and ready to go home? Mr. Worker Bee asked them. We are all ready to go home, Mr. Worker Bee, the tree chorused. Excuse me. The group waved Mrs. Bird a cheery goodbye and flew away from the park by the sea. They cannot wait to get home and tell their parents the wonderful things they have learned in the tour. They are surely growing up to be a disciplined, honest, respectful, and happy bumblebees. So that's all about the story of Bobby and his friend going on a tour in the community. So it's just a simple. So my realization about when I recall the story, yeah, it's a simple story. But if you the read aloud, but if you don't listen to the story, and there is no one to guide you, no one to guide you, you can't recall about that story, of course. So I appreciate how the speaker guide me. Yes, I'm one of the students who aren't listening well. So it's it's good to hear stories like this, simple stories that can they are uh, they are they are stories that have that students can get like disciplines, being honest and respectful. That they can learn about the story not just by listening, not only by the sounds. So I think that's why I like the stories. So that's all. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the stories as well as I am. Thank you and God bless.